Good morning. We're just going to give it one more minute as we see people are joining. So in the interest of time, we're going to kick off, and good morning and welcome everyone to our data security briefing today. We are very excited to see so many people on the call. It's an area that we're extremely passionate about. So we're going to record the session today, and we will send it out later on in the afternoon along with all of the slides. And please feel free to pop any questions you have in the chat. And at the end of the session, we can pick them up and answer as many as possible. And we'll also share myself and Johnny's email addresses that you can reach out to us directly to. So I'm going to pass over to Johnny Morrow, our Head of Technical Innovation here at Viatel. So again, as I said, data security is something that we're really passionate about here, especially Johnny, as we, I suppose, navigate our way through the world of AI. We are starting to see now that data is really important. So Johnny's going to talk us through, I suppose, how to identify potential risks, how to mitigate against them, an introduction to Purview, and then also introduce our security workshop as well. So I'll pass you over to Johnny, and thanks again for joining.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about data security, right? And we just have 30 minutes, so it's a really it's just a little time to go through all the slides. So I'm going to be some slides are going to be going faster. A few of them are going to be spending more time talking about the specifics there. We will be sending this presentation after the webinar, so you can take a look on your own time. There is a section at the end of the presentation with some print screens. I don't think we have time today to do a live demo, right, on Purview and data security, but you can see when the deck is sent to you that there are some print screens of the portal and some capabilities, some interesting alerts and things. So you can take a look on your own time. Okay. All right, so the data security, right? We have to start trying to explain what's data, and that seemed to be really simple, okay? But data can come in many forms. We usually think about data on, just documents and Word files, but in fairness, data can be stored in SQL, can be SQL tables, can be photos, videos, chats, notes, emails, anything. And many forms, and that can live anywhere. It can be stored on Teams on your local laptop, can be stored in SQL database, Dropbox. So we're going to be talking about securing the data today, and a few of the risks and mitigations we can have around that. But data can have many forms and live in multiple places. All right. And the challenges that companies now are facing are just the amount of data they have. And, very few companies were created 3-5 years ago. Most companies that we deal with are there for a good while. Few of them come from having on-premises servers, 2003 servers and file servers. And a lot of those companies just carry that data throughout the years, right? 20-30 years of data, and that only grows because there are a lot of new tools and new ways of sharing, of using data, and productivity is a hot topic. So companies naturally generate more data, and with that we obviously have some issues with duplicated data, with unstructured data, going throughout many apps, Teams, with phones, with emails. And the user behavior, obviously, that's part of that. Now we have AI in the mix to make things more complex. Users most likely are not qualified enough or not trained enough just to deal with data, because as productivity comes and evolves, we need to bring end users into play as well. And most companies didn't do that or don't do that, right? So the data will only grow and will become more problematic, and will, increase the surface of attack for bad actors as well. So this is a report from Gartner, right? And there are some predictions for 2026 and 2027. So by 2026, which means, the stage we are now, 75% of organizations running AI will just reprioritize their efforts to data security, right? I think with the AI coming to play, a lot of companies are realizing that their personal information or their business intellectual property can be shared with AI and can go to the market very easily. All right. By 2027, which means throughout this year, organizations will be investing in real-time remediations for data loss prevention. So when you're talking about risks, right, and cybersecurity, you either take something down or you access something information, and data is around it. So data is in the epicenter of cybersecurity, really. And another prediction will be that by 2027, at least one global company will have its AI deployment banned by a regulator for non-compliance. And we know there are some AI regulations coming to play, and that's gonna hit in 2027. So I do believe for the first prediction there that happened already, and for 2026 that more and more regulations and more controls will be required for data. As productivity grows, we need to protect that, right? And the threat landscape is growing rapidly. Microsoft, this is a report from Microsoft, and it shows there that in 2 years ago, Microsoft was analyzing 80 trillion signals, and that raised to 100 trillion last year. So these are, a lot of signals, and they're most of them are around data. So Microsoft recommends to use an approach of always assume breach. So what it means is when you always assume breach is on the early stages of an event, when something is detected and it's not a priority, it's not a high risk, it's not a P1, it's not critical yet, then we should assume that something serious is going on, right? And the observed exfiltration there of 51 of reactive engagements, 80% of the engagements had data access involved in that. So data is in the core of things, and with the AI coming to play, there's a big battle to be done there on that space. So incidents can happen anywhere and anytime. And I think that slide is interesting because it shows a separation on the external risks and the internal risks, right? So external will be your traditional phishing attacks. Someone clicked on the link coming from outside, or there's a breach in the firewall there that coming from outside. We all know that's from the really early days of cybersecurity, right? But internal risks have become more and more relevant, and you can see there's a big scope there for malicious or bad actors to work on. You have USBs, you have OneDrive, you have Dropbox that can have personal information or private information, or a user that's leaving an organization can delete something or carry something like that, and Gen AI to play now. Who knows what users are just uploading there, intentionally or not. Right? Many companies ban the use of USB and they think we're fine. We allowed, only this set of 10 USB sticks here and we're fine. But do companies actually know what information is being uploaded to those USB sticks, So it is a risk, and internal risks are big in the cybersecurity, are big in the data security space. And now to make things more fun, AI came to play, and AI is being used everywhere. Whether you try to block on your organization or not, that's going to be used anyway, right? An interesting fact is, when the social media came to play and was a big thing, I saw a lot of companies blocking social media and and try to prevent users to use that, and that's not the case anymore. And with the use of AI, very few companies are trying to actually block the use of AI. They want to control that. They want to know what's going on. And that's a real challenge because, you might have tools to specifically address some AI, usage, etc. But, it doesn't give you the full picture and doesn't work. And obviously you have the user education in the mix as well, because you can put all controls in place, but if users are clicking, are taking the personal phones and uploading files that are typing in personal information, there's nothing you can do about that. So the assume breach is it's something you have to keep in mind, and you need to be prepared to react if some breach happens, because you won't be able to control everything. So let's talk about some data risks a little bit, and these are the most common ones we see around. And just to set the scene a little bit on what kind of challenges we are facing on organizations. So dark data is, I think, it's the most common risk that I see around, and that's about your dark organizational data, right? So as I'd said before, companies have legacy files all over the place, right? And we don't really know what they are and what share permissions they have. A few IT managers just create an archive folder and throw all the data there and say, okay, I'm sorted now because all the old stuff is there. But that's really not protecting. That's really not taking care of the dark data. So most companies, and I would assume all companies, have dark data and have data that they don't know, how it's shared, how it's presented, where it's stored, really. How many of you in your organization and in your day-to-day have a local copy of a document that you also have uploaded a copy in SharePoint or Teams, and also have an email shared with someone? We're talking about 4 or 5 copies of the same data. So do you know what they are, what permissions they have, really? Now expand this to all users in your organization. It's a big challenge. You have the risk of oversharing on the top of that, right? So again, we all fall to the same mistake, until we are educated enough, of putting some permissions to public. Anyone in the organization can access this site, or creating links when we're sharing a document that everyone can edit, and then share with people inside and outside the organization, if that's allowed, right? There are some controls in place, and I see companies using that of preventing people to share externally. But even if you do with a whitelisted domain with your supplier, that's still a risk. A very common type of attack nowadays is you have your suppliers there on the whitelist, right, for sharing documents. You share the documents with them, and then if they get breached, attackers would put some links and some scripts on those documents. So when you open the document, it runs under your name there, under your computer. And if you don't have enough controls, and if the controls are not able to respond to those scripts, those links, then you get breached. Again, supply chain breach is something that's really common, especially in 2025. We've seen a lot of cases of supply chain being breached. So that oversharing is another challenge for people, because you don't really know what permissions are inside those dark data files. Shadow AI, again, AI is there. Do you really know what employees are doing with AI? What they're prompting, what they're asking, what information they're putting there? Companies might have a label applied already to their documents, but what if the employees copy some piece of information from inside the document or the whole document and just paste in an AI and ask the question, bypass your label? So shadow AI is a big risk around data. Again, data security incidents can happen anywhere, anytime, really. So, an email comes in, a shared copy of a file with colleagues and teams go on, so you expose the data, then it's uploaded to a cloud like Dropbox or OneDrive, and then it's downloaded to an offline. So data moves, right? And it doesn't move itself. People move data, and it's hard to keep control over that movement. Another case would be a shared storage there, when you download or delete or do something around confidential files in SharePoint, and then you can send an email to an external recipient. It could be the Hotmail account Like we don't prevent people to email this kind of accounts like Hotmail, Gmail, and then it goes to another Dropbox and it's printed. Could be done in a company laptop, right? It could be done in a company premises, and that's data theft. That might be a user, or that might be an employee that's leaving the company. Now, the way that companies are addressing those threats nowadays is just they put tons of security applications to work in very specific ways to very specific items or threats. And that's not wrong, you know. You have to address the challenges you see somehow, right? We all receive a lot of emails from vendors nowadays saying, we have a new tool here that's what it does because there's a new attack surface, there's a new kind of a threat around, and that's fine, right? But applying many tools, security tools, can create a problem as well. So a report from the Microsoft Data Security Index says from 2024, and I believe that grew in the newest one, says that in the average, companies have an average of 12 secure solutions to secure the data state. And if you count well, your organization would have that number, right? If you count properly, you would have that number or more. So that creates a lot of complexity and brings a lot of problems. When you have a fragmented state of a lot of security tools, are you able to keep on the top of the configuration of those tools? Are you able to update the tools firmware? Are you taking care of the alerts? Are you classifying the data? Are you taking care of the exposed gaps or each one of them? So that's not cost effective. That there's a high cost on that. It's a huge management burden. It's almost impossible to keep on the top of things. You need a cybersecurity team to be looking at those tools, security tools, and it's ineffective in some cases, like on AI. So it's not a great setup to have as many security tools as that. So looking at the future, this is an article from Gartner. To implement a data security program in your organization has become vital, but the very first step is to consolidate the technologies and the tools you have. There's no world in the future that you're going to have one single size fits all. That's not a thing, right? You will have different tools, but the amount of fragmented tools we're seeing in customers nowadays and companies in general, it's just alarming. So Gartner says the very first thing to do is to apply and consolidate those technologies, right? And then you can work on your data security program to try to evaluate and see what hidden risks you have to mitigate the exposures or regulations that you might need to be complying to, and follow that string on the data security program, right? So to secure the data, you first need to discover the hidden risks. As I say, there's thousands of files on your organizations, and millions sometimes, being pictures on the corporate phone, being files on the file server, tables in a database, multiple copies, multiple permissions on those copies. It is essential that companies, instead of looking from the risk perspective only and choosing a tool to rectify or remediate that without knowing how big is the gap, or what extent the risk comes inside their organization, inside their own files. Every company is different, right? It's not effective. So discovering those hidden risks, protecting and preventing, based on what you found and based on the new technologies and threats that come. And you need to quickly investigate and respond to security incidents. Assume breach. There's going to be a lot of tools that will sell you zero trust, what they call, or something that's flawless, but it's not, right? You need to assume breach. Even if you put all controls in place, nothing will prevent the user to type in something to their AI, right? So you need to be able, if something happens, you need to be able to respond quickly to those, okay? And that's where the Purview comes to play, right? Purview is a unified tool that will address most of the data security risks. Definitely is the best tool around to do that, simply because it's Microsoft, right? And it bundles so naturally with your Windows. So you're using Windows 11, you have Windows servers, you might be using SQL database, right? Everything around that, and the apps, even if your mobile phone will be using Outlook to access the emails there. You have Intune, so everything is on the Microsoft ecosystem. And Purview is a product that bundles many modules of cybersecurity tools into one, so you don't have the fragmentation anymore, and allows you to see in a single pane of glass what's going on in your organization, right? So we're gonna go through some slides there to show how Purview can help you to tick those boxes and some differentiators. But out of the box, guys, it's it's Microsoft. It's built in to your tenant, it's built into your organization, and it can look at the user behavior, it can look at your device, you can look at your 365 email flow, SharePoint permissions, everything that's there. If you have servers, Windows servers as well, it will look at that. It will look at the files inside the Windows servers. It can look at your fabric, and there's hundreds of integrations on Purview as well to detect and to analyze some data risk. Salesforce, Tableau, there's a lot of third parties involved as well. So I selected this slide because I think it's a very tiny bit of what Purview can do, but I think it shows how Purview works with these different modules together to bring some really valuable information to companies. What you see there, the 4 buckets are data loss prevention, information protection, insider risk management, and data security investigations. With all these and posture management, so with all these technologies combined, Microsoft calls that adaptive protection. It actually discovers the data and classifying label sensitive data if you configure that so, and prevents unauthorized use of that anywhere. It prevents people to copy PII information, to the clipboard, even print, do whatever. It tracks every click of the mouse, and it can control what you can do with this private information. And you understand the user context as well, which is important. So every user inside Purview would have a risk associated with that. So based on what the user behavior is, you would have a risk user or not. And once you drill down to that user, you will see why it's considered a high risk or a critical risk, for example. You will say, okay, this user is, Lisa is a higher risk user because she has been copying a lot of files to USB, right? Or sharing with external people, or she copied some PII information from a confidential document. So all this is tracked there. And compliance is key nowadays. The NIS2 come into play. You need to be able to track down those actions in case something happens. So the adaptive protection is something that analyzes, the usage of the file server, the 365, the user behavior, the use of AI, the prompts that users give to AI, and gives you some nice alerts, nice incidents, and nice visual representations of what happened. So again, it detects and mitigates critical risk in a proactive and reactive way. Remember I said you have to reveal the risk, you have to protect, and you have to be able to respond if something happens anyway. So classify your dark data to understand is proactive, and manage that data is all proactive, putting policies in place as well. If an incident occurs either way, you have to be able to know where it happened and to have an action, a visual tracking on that incident, and be able to respond to that, right? So all of this can be done through the Purview portal. Again, just another incident kind of example here. The privacy is respected. You don't want your help desk to know that the CEO, copied the file or an information that they didn't supposed to see, right? So Purview has very granular permissions, and they can work in a way that only people that need to see real names and the real file names will be able to see that, right? So in the example there, a user just downgraded labels, save files to USB, and deleted to clean up. It might be something even the company. Sorry. So Purview and the DLP work the way and can block the user, can block the file, can do many actions, right? Purview ticks a lot of boxes as well. You can see ISO 27001. I put some specific items. Don't worry, this will be sent to you after this webinar. But there are way more, a lot of other regulations that come to play. The Purview will tick boxes, and Purview has a compliance manager that you can evaluate yourself against those compliance and regulations as well. So how can Viatel help you guys on that, right? So I showed you a little bit of the risks and data security, the challenges we face nowadays, and we as a Viatel, we're a company that face those challenges as well. We have a lot of customer information here, so we need to be protecting ourselves. So how can Viatel help you, your organization, to use the likes of Purview and address those challenges? We launch a workshop on data security, right? And this workshop will be running on your environment, will be running under a trial license, so you don't have to actually pay any Purview license. There is a license section here at the end, and you see that there is a single license now that addresses 99% of Purview. So, and it's really cheap now. There's a huge promotion around that, and Microsoft cut the cost in half, so everyone can start using that. So the workshop will activate that trial and will scan your network, right, and your 365, your environments, to unreveal and reveal some risks around that. So you will be understanding the data organizational risks inside your company during the workshop. We will obviously assess, everything you have, and it's possible to be assessed. So from 365 to AI usage to on-premises servers, identify risk inside the risks, or really just rate your users and the risk basis. So if users are considered risky, their activities are considered risky or not, we will analyze the report and give you some recommendations. It runs in the very simple phases. It's meant to be simple. It's meant to be simple. We do a Purview overview and show you the capabilities of Purview, right? And we assess those capabilities and try to create a set of policies to be enabled on your tenant based on what you choose to use under a single license. And we leave that running for 2 weeks, right? So after 2 weeks, we go back there and we analyze all the information was collected by Purview, and we give you some recommendations. Okay, so that's very simple. It's a very simple engagement. You will have then your data security strategy documented, so you could take upwards there and show the real risk and exposure your company has. And then you'll be able to obviously unlock maybe some more budget for the security inside your organization, because the real deal. It's not something that you present slides of a sample tenant or something. This will be your real data, the real risks that are happening in your environment, right? So you can understand and prioritize those threats, those potential threats, and mitigate them, obviously, and accelerate your compliance and data security journey with Purview. Purview has a lot of modules there, and this workshop addressed the most important, I won't call the important ones, but the ones that carry most risks. But in that single license, in that single user license, it just carries a lot that Purview can do for you. Okay, so the intention here is to show you the risks that you're facing now, and to give you an education on the Purview as well. This is what you can do, and this is how much it's going to cost to you, right? So as I say, Microsoft is making it really easy. A few years back, it was really expensive to get Purview. There's a lot of confusion around the cost. Microsoft made it really accessible now. If you have business premium, you can use Purview and you can pay $10, but Microsoft is running a promotion until the 31st of March. That's $5 or 5 years, around 5 years per user. Okay, so that's really, really cheap if you consider that. So make sure you talk to your account managers and people that are taking care of your licenses, because it's a huge deal and a huge value brought from Microsoft. I think we have a few minutes left. If is there any questions, this will be sent to you guys anyway after this workshop.
Thanks so much for that, Johnny. There's no questions in the chat that I can see, but again, if anyone wants to pop them in now, we'll stay on the call. Or if not, the next slide is myself and Johnny's email address. So please feel free to reach out. Again, as we said, the recording and the slides will be sent out later today. So if you do have any questions or require additional information, look, data security is a minefield, but we genuinely feel Purview can help you really navigate that a lot more easily. So yeah, thanks for your time today. We really appreciate that you joined us.